Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. We are going to camp out in the book of Psalms just a little bit longer because I have a few more things to tell you that relate to the Torah. I have reoriented my little studio here so that those of you who mostly watch so that you can check out my bookshelves have different shelves to look at. You can see what I've got on the Psalms and the wisdom books of the Old Testament, and you're welcome for that. Most of us imagine that the book of Psalms is one book, and I never thought otherwise until probably I was well into seminary when I realized that the book of Psalms is not just one book, but it's made up of 5 books. If you look in your English Bibles, you'll notice right above the heading for Psalm 1, it says Book 1, Psalms 1 through 41. And you'll find 5 headings like that throughout the book of Psalms. These headings show us that the book of Psalms is a series of collections that grew over time, and that these collections are organized on purpose. So if you're like me and you grew up thinking of the book of Psalms as a very random collection of ancient prayers put in no particular order, then it's time to rethink that. And you can start by watching the 2 Bible Project videos on the Psalms because they give such a great overview of the structure of the book of Psalms. They're really helpful. I'll put a link down below in the description so that you can check those out when this video is done. Psalms 1 and 2 function as an introduction to the entire collection, all 5 books of Psalms, and they introduce the 2 major themes. The first theme they introduce is that of the Torah, which is why we can talk about it on Torah Tuesday. We've spent the past 2 videos looking at Psalm 1 and how it encourages us to meditate on, mull over, murmur the Torah so that it strengthens us and roots us in God's instructions. Psalm 2 introduces the Messiah as the anointed ruler who is bringing all things into submission to God. So those 2 function as an introduction to the book. At the end of the book of Psalms, Psalms 145 to 150, we get a crescendo of praise in those Psalms. And so in between the beginning and the end of the book of Psalms, you'll notice a gradual movement from lament to praise. We have far more laments in the beginning, and then it moves to praise, and a gradual shift from a focus on the kingship of David to the kingship of Yahweh. It's a very, very interesting thing to notice that general progression. But I'm here to talk about the 5 books and why they matter. These 5 books mimic the 5 books of the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. By presenting the Psalms to us in a set of 5 collections or 5 books, the editors are implying that this book of Psalms, these Psalms, are designed to instruct us the way the Torah instructs God's people in how to live righteous lives. So by praying the Psalms, we are gradually transformed into becoming the kind of people who are faithful covenant keepers. I want to read you 2 quotes from a book that I have on the Psalms by Gordon Wenham, Psalms as Torah. On page 76, he talks about how powerful the commitment is that the Psalms demand of their user. In praying the Psalms, one is actively committing oneself to following the God-approved life. So the Psalms function as instruction because as we pray them, they teach us, they invite us to commit ourselves to faithful living. So we're not just eavesdropping on someone else's prayers, we're invited to make these our own prayers. He says on page 165, "In pursuit of my investigation of the ethics of the Psalter, this chapter has taken a glimpse at the portraits of the righteous and wicked that it offers. The unpleasant image of the wicked is meant to deter the reciter of the Psalms from imitating them, whereas the reverse applies to the descriptions of the righteous, which are intended to encourage righteous behavior. This is underlined by the parallels drawn between God's attitudes and actions and those of the righteous. In a variety of ways, the righteous are expected to imitate God and represent Him on earth." The Psalms help us in our pursuit of covenant faithfulness by modeling for us what it should look like to be righteous and to serve God wholeheartedly. And by praying the Psalms, we're invited into that lifestyle. So if you haven't done it before, I invite you to pick a psalm each day. Just work your way systematically through the Psalms. Pray a psalm each day. Pray it in the morning. Pray it again at night. Turn it into your prayer and let it train and transform your heart to be a covenant keeper. Have a great week.